Okay, well you voted, and the thing we're looking at for the 200 subscriber special is Nightmare Rarity. Which I kind of already said I'd review, guys. I mean, you could have pushed pretty much anything you wanted on me, but you were really just that eager to see me get to this. It's that exciting. Well, yeah, I guess if it works for you, it works for me, so, okay, here's Nightmare Rarity. We open with Twilight being chased through Ponyville in a scene straight out of Silent Hill, but as you might expect, it turns out to only be a nightmare. Morning, Twilight. How'd you... Don't even ask, Sir Sleeps a Lot. Not another nightmare. That's every day this week. You know, from the way they always phrase that, I'm starting to wonder if this franchise thinks the cliché is just that nightmares make you sleepy. I mean, I always thought it was that they wake you up in the middle of the night and then you have trouble getting back to sleep, but both here and in the most recent episode, they never show or mention that part. Like the ponies just had a nightmare and then woke up the next day like that. Because, I mean, if that is the idea, then who knew sleeping could be such hard work?
Sweetie and I can take turns. That way, when one of us gets tired, the other can take over.
Later that day, Twilight sets out for a cure, but apparently nightmares and not the inability to walk on the ceiling are the one thing ponies never bothered to cure with magic. But while she's in the middle of reading, a sleepy Rainbow Dash falls out of the sky and crashes into her, revealing that she's been having nightmares too. Not to be a pest, but would you mind keeping it down a bit, Pinkie Pie? Or Fluttershy? I mean, Twilight? Yes, some of us haven't had a beauty rest. Why, it's getting so a girl can't even nap in the middle of the road anymore. Sure enough, they've been having nightmares too, although I have to question how that could mess up Applejack so much that she keeps forgetting the names of whoever she's talking to. She is just a drunk, isn't she? Well, it can't be all of you, right? Where's Pinkie Pie? Yeah, like you'd notice if she did.
I'm totally beat too!
And sure enough, as though assuming we can fill in the blanks ourselves, we then cut to Pinkie Pie throwing them a slumber party to get rid of the nightmares. If anything can chase away those heebie-jeebie dreams, it's a girly night of fun. Right, Rainbow Dash? Yeah, I think I can guess the punchline to that one. What is this, an anti-joke? Okay, so I think the idea was that it's supposed to be Pinkie Pie baiting Rainbow into a pillow fight, but anyway, after pondering the strange nightmares for a while, they decide to turn in. But sure enough, later that night, the smog from Twilight's dreams drifts in through the window and into their heads. You are dismissed, Twilight Sparkle. Forever! Just thought I should clarify that I'm not going to unfire you somewhere down the line. I mean, I thought about it, but I just have a good feeling that this thing with Trixie is going to work out, so... I did everything I could. I mean, all Big Mac did was stare at me all ominous-like, as if he wouldn't be just as much responsible if this actually happened. Wait, come back!
You're going to love me!
Hold on, I can fly too! That's actually a genuinely depressing image. Tough room. Hula hoops while making balloon animals and playing instruments with only one leg. Okay, I don't normally go this route, but I'm sorry. If you're doing all of that and the audience isn't impressed, they're wrong. But Rarity's nightmare, though it involves not being good enough like everyone else is the only one that's specifically about not being good enough for her friends. And being replaced, what's more, as her pleas to let her help and not be forgotten fall upon deaf ears. The nightmare smog then grabs hold of her and carries her out the window. Get your stinking paws off her, you damn dirty air! At least that's what it should have said. Rainbow gives chase, even turning on the sonic rain boom after she gets knocked away, but right before she catches up, the Cloud and Rarity disappear into thin air. What? No fair! Actually, I agree. I mean, why lead her on a chase if you were just going to do that anyway? Twilight puts together that the smog is also responsible for their nightmares, and decides that Princess Luna might know something about it. Princess Luna is our only hope. Anyone have a scroll? You can ask her in Pony. I believe a dark energy has been infiltrating your dreams. My sister might be able to help. Princess Celestia and Princess Luna! Can we rewrite the script? It's so cheesy if we all say that at once! Luna's not entirely sure what to say to the gang, but she does know that Rarity's been taken to the Nightmare Dreamscape, and that it involves her sensitive past as Nightmare Moon. Something is happening. Something I had hoped would never come to pass. Did you eat too much broccoli? No. Sleep through your alarm? No. Use salt instead of sugar? No. Accidentally wear your shirt backwards all day? No. Realize your mom was right about everything?
No.
Notice the comedy's getting more frantic than funny?
No.
Stop to question why I don't realize that it probably has to do with the horrible event that I witnessed not 10 minutes ago that this whole thing is about?
No.
Realize that the writers don't particularly care?
Well, yes, but no.
Luna reveals that the dark powers that turned her into Nightmare Moon were more complex and more sentient than it might have seemed at first. That being corrupted by them was like hearing the perfect thing at every second to convince her to accept their power and their hatred to get what she wanted. She thought being hit by the elements of harmony was the end of them, but apparently it just sent them back to the moon. And according to legend, the cycle of the new moon allows them to harvest strength, to the point where it could grant them a second chance.
So the legend included them being beaten the first time? Because, I mean, you'd think somebody would have noticed by now if everything were mapped out to a T like that. I mean, unless Part 2 was just able to hit the shelves and age into its own legend in the months since Nightmare Moon was defeated.
So Luna agrees to take the ponies to the moon while Celestia prepares Ponyville for battle. I hope your friend is brave, because the Nightmare Dreamscape is not for the faint of heart.
Rarity is strong as an ox, riding a fox, trapped in a steel box, using her teeth for locks.
If this is Pinkie Pie trying to make up for that dream, ironically, this is where she deserves to be booed off stage. Rainbow, meanwhile, starts ranting about plans involving enlarging rays and time machines and flying to the moon, until finally they just start ignoring her.
Is this thing on? I know, right? It's like we're speaking Cowheely.
Okay, well, you didn't really have to do much to top Pinkie Pie's gags here, Rainbow, but you didn't succeed. But while the gang puts their plan together, Rarity attempts to stay strong in the face of the Nightmare Dreamscape. Really? That's the best you've got? Whooshing around in the dark? Oh dear, that is definitely a step up.
Yeah, brave or not, Rarity really doesn't have a poker face.
So issue number 1 ends with Rarity facing down our first look at the mysterious Nightmare forces. Issue number 2 begins with the gang putting their rescue into action. It turns out that getting them all to the moon takes a combination of tricks. First with Luna using her magic to pull the moon in close, and then Celestia enchanting a rope of Applejacks to straight up lasso the thing. It's actually a pretty grand image, and just the sort of whimsical thing you'd expect the show to go for more than it does. I could sure use a few enchanted apple carts during harvest season. What do you think, Princess Celestia?
Well, if we don't move this moon, we'll have heavier problems than apple carts. Then let's put our cutie booties into high gear and pull!
She said booty.
So they tie it down and begin their tightrope walk to the moon, making sure to add lots of references to anything they can think of. But when Spike steps on in a suit of armor, despite Applejack's concerns that it'll be too heavy, he breaks through, leaving everyone falling through space.
BS. Spike is the smallest of all of them by far. If doubling his weight, if even that, is all it takes to break through the magic lasso, then it was a bad idea to start with.
Anyway, with Rainbow, Fluttershy, and eventually Luna to the rescue, they land safely on the moon. But the only thing Spike doesn't drop is the fire ruby he gave Rarity back in Secret of My Excess. Luna then goes about explaining just what they're dealing with here. When the nightmare energy came back to life, it needed a form to take. Unfortunately, the peaceful inhabitants of the moon became its victims, and are now trapped under its spell.
Okay, so the nightmare energy came back to life, and then there just so happened to be other things living on the moon that have nothing to do with anything, whom it needed to take over. Well, where did they come from? And more importantly, what does that add to the story? I mean, what's wrong with just being nightmare energy? It got the job done stealing Rarity away, didn't it?
How could they do that to sweet little animals? They aren't sweet anymore.
What, so now everyone knew all along that there just so happened to be cutesy animals living on the moon? I mean, that's a little more significant than you're making it out to be.
Meanwhile, the corrupted moon animals are hard at work trying to get Rarity to join their ranks. We've made our offer very clear.
Clear? You know what's crystal clear? The fact that a new set of drapes would do wonders for this place.
Wait a second. What kind of a line is that? It has nothing to do with anything. What are you talking about? It's Rarity. She always says stuff about fashion.
Oh, but we know that all you ever want to do is help. And we do need help from a pretty lady, don't we, Larry? Don't we, Shadow Fright?
No, my friends. They need me.
Do they? Or will they reject your gift once some pony new comes along? Some pony with less attitude, maybe?
Attitude? Excuse me, they didn't say that. You did. But it was in the nightmare we gave you, wasn't it?
If you only knew the power of the dark side? Actually, that does start to convince her, and it's not long before they have her right where they want her. I think the idea is that Rarity's need to be needed is akin to Luna's, but the show always made it sound like Luna was pushed pretty far with being shunned before she became Nightmare Moon. If this is all it takes to corrupt Rarity the same way, they're making her a lot more insecure than I've ever seen her. We then cut back to the gang playing a pretty funny game of I Spy, but then they're surrounded and overcome by the Nightmare Mist, which the princess in charge of dreams has no power over because then we wouldn't have a comic. We then cut to Twilight, who doesn't find it even a little suspicious that she's suddenly back home and being dismissed by Princess Silvestri again. What? No! The magic of friendship is dead, Twilight, and it's all because of you! You have failed me, Twilight. Your lack of knowledge has killed friendship! I hope you appreciate how hard it is to read that line with a straight face. Spike and Luna find her and start trying to snap her out of it, but Twilight's almost too afraid to doubt it. But they point out that, well, it doesn't make sense, that there couldn't be two people talking to her from the outside looking in if this were real, so yeah, it's only her fear keeping her in place.
Fear is not real.
Hey, I said to never cut to that again! Would somebody out there who actually knows what they're doing please make a movie with that theme? Friendship is not dead. And nightmares aren't real!
So they set off to rescue the other friends, starting with Rainbow Dash, who again is dreaming that her wings are clipped, this time leaving her helpless to save Ponyville. There's nothing quite so epic as standing up to Princess Celestia this time, but I think the idea is that Luna shows her how a good dream can seem just as real, so it's up to her whether she chooses faith or fear. Haha, nice try, Slow Smoke! Next up is Pinkie Pie, though they abridge her segment to skip past the part where the gang encourages her. I gotta say, though, there's something kinda badass about the image of her holding her ground against a jeering crowd, even as they're throwing stuff in her face and staying strong.
So you can't party? Are you not amused? Guess what, Nightmare Schmightmare? I am the most laughter-giving, fun-having, friend-making pony ever! You have no power over me!
I kinda like the image of Luna whistling for her, too. Over in Fluttershy's nightmare, she's still just trying to apologize for whatever's got her animal friends so angry. But then Pinkie Pie and Rainbow Dash kick down the door to bust them for being fakers.
Poor Fluttershy, upstaged in her own segment.
Fluttershy's still convinced that it must be her fault somehow, but when Rainbow reveals some of their disguises, she gets mad at them for taking advantage of her kindness.
Sing it, sister! Oh, why not? Fakers!
Applejack's bit is exactly the same as it was before, though with everyone she cares about personally blaming her, it makes sense that they saved this for last. Twilight brings her out of it by promising both that she's a great farmer, and that the rest of them would be there to help long before this happened. So I guess it's a continuation of her theme about learning to rely on her loved ones sometimes and not take it all upon herself. In fact, it seems like they're trying to add that it works two ways, because the team needs her right now, and if she doesn't accept their encouragement, she won't be able to help them either. And thus, the last of the team defeats their nightmare, leaving them back in the real world, and totally surrounded by angry nightmare monsters. A little career help here, Fluttershy? Sorry, I'm out of bravery for the day. So they start by trying to mess with Luna, seeing if they can get at her insecurity over having once been Nightmare Moon. And surprisingly, she almost gives in once they promise to spare the others in exchange for her returning to them.
You aren't going anywhere, Princess Luna! Yeah, like we're gonna let some goth-loving bunny take another one of our friends? Darn tootin'!
I'm your friend?
Well, duh! We all trust you. We know you would never lie to us.
That was a nice moment with Luna. Except for that last line, which is so obviously just an excuse for her to feel guilty about some kind of lie.
Yep, there it is. So after realizing that the group is thoroughly past giving in to their nightmare manipulations, the monsters decide that it's time to deal in spades and summon their new queen to the battlefield. Nightmare Rarity. Well, so far I'd say we're off to a pretty good start. There are some rough patches, particularly the cheesy humor, and I'm not totally confident in this lore they're weaving with the nightmare creatures, but so far they are managing to put some weight behind this story, both emotionally and in the conflict they're building up. There's still a lot to get through though, so I reserve the right to change my mind at any time. Come back for part 2 and we'll see how it all plays out. Till then. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. If you didn't, well, I guess 200 is enough for now. And if you'd like to watch another video in this series, click here. Otherwise, just check the description for more links, and I'll see you next time.